The first sound wasn't the gunshots themselves, it was the sudden, terrified cry of a small child ripping through the cold morning air, a cry so sharp it made everyone on the street freeze mid-step. Tires screeched. A motorcycle tipped and clattered against the asphalt. And in that split second, when chaos and fear collided, a barefoot homeless boy lunged forward without thinking, throwing his thin, trembling body in front of a little girl in a pink backpack. 3 deafening cracks tore through the air. 3 bullets meant for her struck him instead. The world stopped breathing. If you believe in kindness, in courage, in second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to support stories that remind us humanity is still alive. The street outside the small abandoned shopping strip had always felt forgotten by the world. Broken pavement, rusted signs, a chill that crept even into the bones. The bikers had parked there for coffee, their engines still ticking as they cooled. They were massive, intimidating men dressed in black leather, faces hardened by past battles and lives lived on the edge. Yet between them stood their world, a little girl, only 6 years old, her hand wrapped around one biker's thick fingers, her pink backpack bouncing gently as she skipped over the cracks in the ground. She was his only child, the one soft, glowing light in a life that had long been consumed by darkness and regret. He had turned his head for only a second, answering one of the men calling his name, when a figure stumbled from between the buildings, a twitchy, desperate man with wild eyes and a half-raised gun. Panic erupted. Someone shouted. Another biker reached for his own weapon. But it was too late. The gun lifted in the child's direction. Time fractured into fragments. And in that impossible moment, a ragged boy who had been sitting near a broken bench, shivering inside a torn hoodie, exploded into motion. No one knew his name then. They only saw a blur of skinny limbs, dirty hair, and fierce, terrified determination. He didn't belong to them, didn't belong to anyone, didn't even belong to a home. Hunger had hollowed his cheeks. The streets had hardened his eyes. But when he saw danger turning toward the little girl, something inside him burned brighter than fear. He ran. He reached her. He pulled her backward as he stepped forward, as if his small body could become a shield against death itself. The bullets found him instead. He fell hard, gasping, the shock rushing through him as warmth spread across his chest and side and back. He didn't scream. He only looked up once, eyes glassy but strangely peaceful, as though he had already made peace with his choice. The little girl clung to her father, sobbing, her cries mixing with the panicked shouts of the bikers as they rushed to the boy, pressing hands to his wounds, yelling for ambulances, for help, for mercy. Their rough hands trembled. Blood stained their leather. For the first time in years, the men the world had called monsters prayed. Sirens finally cut through the air. Paramedics swarmed the scene. The boy was barely conscious when they lifted him onto the stretcher. 3 bullets. 3 holes in a body already fractured by hunger, cold, and neglect. As the ambulance doors slammed shut and the vehicle tore down the street, the biker knelt on the ground where the blood still stained the pavement. His daughter's arms were wrapped around his neck, her small voice whispering over and over that the boy had saved her and that he was brave like a superhero. And those words, spoken with trembling innocence, shattered whatever steel walls the biker had built around his heart. At the hospital, time became torture. Every minute stretched, heavy and unbearable. The men sat in rigid silence, their massive bodies hunched in small plastic chairs, the sound of beeping machines and distant footsteps echoing through endless corridors. None of them had ever felt so powerless. They had survived crashes, fights, prison cells, rival gangs, but this was different. This was a child. A child they didn't know who had chosen to give up his life for a child they loved more than anything. Hours later, a doctor finally emerged. The bullets had missed the heart by inches. The boy had lost a terrifying amount of blood, but he was alive. Weak. Broken. Yet still clinging to life. The relief that washed over the men came in the form of silent tears rolling down bearded faces. No one mocked them. No one looked away. In that sterile hallway, something ancient and sacred shifted. That boy had tied their souls to his forever. Days turned into weeks. The boy woke slowly, confusion flickering in his tired eyes. He didn't understand why he was in a clean white bed, why his body was wrapped in bandages, why food arrived on a tray beside him. He had never stayed in one place long enough to learn what care felt like. But every single day, the bikers came. Big men, soft voices. They brought soup, fruit, new clothes, books. They sat with him in silence or told him stories about roads that never ended, about lost friends, about choices and consequences. And the little girl, the one he had shielded, held his hand, resting her head on the bed beside him, smiling as if he were the one who needed protecting now. He finally told them his name. It came out like a secret he had been holding for years. He had lost his family long ago. Foster homes had blurred into streets. Trust had become something dangerous. But that day, when he stepped in front of her, something had felt clear for the first time in his life. He said he hadn't thought at all. He just knew she deserved to live. When he recovered enough to stand, the world that waited for him had changed. The biker who had once known only violence filed adoption papers. The men who once only wandered found purpose. They repaired an old house, painted its walls, built a small room filled with soft blankets and light. They bought a desk for schoolwork and a bed that would never be taken away. The little girl called him her brother. The boy who had once belonged to no one suddenly had a family that would lay down their lives for him the way he had for them. Years later, the scars would remain. Thin white lines across his skin, reminders of that frozen morning. But they were no longer marks of pain. They became proof of love, of bravery, of the moment one broken soul healed many others at once. And every time the engines of the motorcycles roared down an open road, the boy, now stronger, now safe, rode with them, not as a stray, not as a victim, but as a son, a brother, a hero whose silent courage had rewritten every fate connected to his. Before this story ends, take a moment to type a special comment, write the words "Hope Lives" if you believe one act of courage can change the world.